So every so often, I'm going to touch on a topic on my podcast that has to do with mental health. My channel is geared towards families and issues that families face in relationships, things as simple as communication issues. But there's one thing that I have come across that I've, talked about with clients or with friends or with family, even my past relationships. There's one issue that, or let's call it a disorder, that people suffer from that's not really addressed or talked about much. We all acknowledge and know what this disorder is, but no one really talks about it. So I'm going to talk about it a little bit tonight. And it's going to be more of a learning lesson, a teaching point. So what we're discussing is narcissism and how it affects you or how it affects your relationship. Welcome to the Mom Connection. This is Nancy. And again, tonight we're going to be talking about a mental health disorder that seems to be very common. It's so common that they say that approximately 0.5% of the United States population, or if you want to get more technical and say 1 in 200 people, suffer from this disorder. And what's crazy is 75% of those people that are narcissistic are men. Now, don't get me wrong, women can also suffer from this disorder as well, but it's more likely that a man will suffer from this. And I don't think people or experts really know why that happens. I mean, there could be many, many reasons. But let's go over the symptoms or the characteristics of someone that suffers from this disorder. 1, they have an exaggerated sense of self-importance. They have a sense of entitlement and require constant, excessive admiration, meaning, they always need to be liked. They need to be praised. They expect to be recognized as superior even without achievements that warrant it. Exaggerate achievements and talents. They're preoccupied with fantasies about success, power, brilliance, beauty, even the perfect mate, perfect relationship. They believe that they're superior and can only associate with equally special people. People have to be on their level. And if they're not, they don't measure up. So, they don't want to waste their time with people that are beneath them, so to speak. Another one is they monopolize conversations and belittle or look down on people they perceive as inferior. They expect special favors and unquestioning compliance with their expectations. They take advantage of others to get what they want. They have an inability or unwillingness to recognize the needs and feelings of others. They're envious of others and believe others envy them. Ha! How crazy is that, right? They behave in an arrogant and haughty manner, coming across as conceited, boastful, and pretentious. They insist on having the best of everything. For instance, the best car, the best job, the best wife, or the best husband, if we're talking about a female. Just everything has to be perfect. But also at the same time, people that are narcissistic or they have that narcissistic behavior, personality disorder, they have trouble handling anything that they perceive as criticism. And when that happens, when a narcissist is criticized, these things can happen, and you have to be careful. They can become impatient or angry when they don't receive special treatment. They have significant interpersonal problems and easily feel slighted, offended. They react with rage or contempt and try to belittle the other person to make themselves appear superior. They have difficulty regulating emotions and behavior, like erratic behavior. They experience major problems dealing with stress and adapting to change. They feel depressed and moody because they fall short of perfection. And they have secret feelings of insecurity, shame, vulnerability, and humiliation. So that information that I just said to you, some of it I got from this article that I was reading earlier. And then some of it, it's off of memory, knowledge, my education. As you know, I think I might have mentioned, I'm a psychology major. These are things that we talk about, the different mental health disorders. And this narcissism is one of the most undiagnosed disorders, because who goes to the doctor and says, I'm a narcissist, I need help? A narcissist doesn't know they're a narcissist. 9 times out of 10, they don't know. And the wrong thing to do is to tell them that they're narcissists. It's so hard to deal with someone with this personality or this disorder, because you can't really tell them that they're narcissists and they're not going to recognize that they're a narcissist. It takes a lot. I think I just saw a video the other day with this guy. I was on TikTok, and all his content, all his videos are about narcissism. And he is a narcissist. He's identified himself as one. He's went to a therapist. The therapist is identified. It's very rare that you see stuff like that happening. He knows that he's married. I believe he's married. I think his wife is in one of his videos. He knows he is, and he's trying to work on it, but he even admits it's hard. I mean, I think it's something that you can't just snap your fingers and change about yourself when you suffer from this. I'm speaking to those that feel like they might suffer from narcissism, especially can relate to those qualities that I just named. It's hard to recognize that that's a problem or a disorder that you have. It's probably better for a professional to diagnose you with that. And once they do, what do you do then? You try to change your ways. Most of his content, that's what he's doing, is he recognizes the problem and he is working on himself, but he said it's very difficult. So I don't want to say it's impossible, but it's tricky. It's kind of hard. People with narcissistic personality disorder may not want to think that anything could be wrong with them. So they may unlikely even go find treatment. Like, they might not even go get help, because it's always the other person that's wrong. And if they do seek help, it's more than likely they might get treated for like depression or some other mental health problem. I've heard of that happen too. Perceived insults to self-esteem can make it difficult to accept and follow through with treatment. So, as I said, you are in a relationship with someone that you suspect suffers from narcissism. I have a friend right now that is going through this, and that kind of brought me to bring this topic up. I've been meaning to talk about this for a while now. I just haven't gotten to it. But, today I was working on some things with my clients, and I came across an article that I read that was very interesting. And it just kind of reminded me, hey, I need to address this. So, if any of you are listening to this and you think that you have a partner or a friend, even a parent that suffers from this, I will tell you now, pointing your finger at them is the wrong thing to do. It's not going to solve anything. It's going to actually make things worse. I'm sure that there are coping mechanisms and, coping skills that you can develop to work with, or to help, or even to just to deal in general with someone that suffers from this disorder. Some people ask, like, how is a person narcissist? Like, when does it happen in your childhood? Does it happen as a result of like trauma? I've had people ask me that too as well. How does someone develop narcissism? How do they become a narcissist? Are they born that way? Well, honestly, genetics does play an important factor. It definitely does. You can inherit characteristics from someone. You can have a narcissistic father or narcissistic mother, and you can inherit their characteristics, believe it or not. Your environment also plays a big role in you know, becoming a narcissist. Let me see. With the environment, it's like mismatch, like parent-child relationships. You might have an overly excessive criticism. Like let's say I just criticize my son all the time, just with everything that he does, I criticize him. He can develop that trait as an adult, as a man, as a young man. So, environment and genetics play a big role in narcissism. Another thing that I came across that can play a role is neurobiology, and that is like the connection between the brain and behavior and thinking. It's like a three-way connection. Your brain, the way you act, your behavior, and the way you think. So, those are the three things that come to mind when answering that question of how does one become narcissist? How does someone become, keep it real. You know how stressful it is? As I said, I've had relationships where now when I look back, I'm a little bit more educated. I'm like, wow, that person that I was involved with was a narcissist or had narcissistic traits, and I just dealt with it. And I always wondered, why is this person so mean? Or why do I always feel like I'm at fault for things? So, we learn, we move on, and we try not to repeat the pattern of getting involved with someone that can be destructive to your emotional well-being. I am very grateful because I am now married and I'm in a relationship with someone that is completely opposite from what I'm used to, from my past. So, I appreciate that. Some other conditions that can happen or cause a person to be a narcissist, is they have problems in their relationships. They have problems at work, at school, their job. They're depressed. They have anxiety. They might even have physical health problems. Or how about this? They might be on drugs or use drugs or or abuse alcohol. Some narcissists, believe it or not, do have suicidal thoughts. So not all narcissists are, what's lack of a better word? I didn't want to curse, but not all of them are jerks. Let's just say jerks. Not all of them are jerks. Some of them seriously have issues with depression, and they can have insecurities, and those insecurities manifest into narcissistic personality disorder. So what do you do if you think that this is you, or you suffer from this, or you know someone that wants to be helped? Because remember, that's the key. They want to be helped. They need to get treatment as soon as possible. Especially if it's a child. It's rare that I hear somebody say, yeah, my child's a narcissist. It's usually adults. But getting treatment as soon as possible will help. Family therapy will help, with communicating, because a narcissist does not know how to effectively communicate. So that can help with communication. If you can get them there, I give you props, but that will also be very tricky. A narcissist also, if they're a parent, if there's kids involved, they should definitely take parenting classes, because I can only imagine if somebody is suffering from narcissism, how they will treat their child and how they will be with children. How will they parent? Do they have the right parenting skills to raise a child up, raise a child up and not, kind of push their, let's call it, agenda onto their kids. So what are your thoughts? I mean, you could always respond, my understanding, to these podcasts, but even if you don't, just something, food for thought. What are your thoughts? Are you in a relationship right now that you think your partner is a narcissist? And if you are, what are you going to do about it? Are you going to learn coping skills? Are you going to leave? Are you going to antagonize them? That's one thing you do not want to do, is to challenge a person that suffers from narcissism. I don't know how many times I have to repeat that, because I've seen and I've heard people like that, they provoke the person, and a narcissist can turn into dangerous behavior. Their reaction, I should say, can turn dangerous. It doesn't always, but it can definitely turn dangerous. It just depends on, if they have other mental health issues going on with them. So just remember, I was trying to remember a story, but just remember that narcissism is something that can be helped if the person wants to be helped, but also it's very difficult to overcome. So let's just take a little break right now, and we'll talk a little bit more about, how, I guess, to overcome or how to identify a person that's narcissist. Hey, so I'm back. All right, so during the break, I was thinking, I know people are going to ask, like, how do you cope with someone what if I'm in a relationship, or what if I'm, I have a parent or something that suffers from narcissism? How do I cope with that? How do I deal with that without losing my mind? Because I can only imagine being in that type of a situation. But it's important in order to develop coping skills, or to be able to deal with that type of behavior, you have to understand it. You have to understand how their minds work, and you have to understand like what their agenda is. If you don't understand how a narcissist thinks, or what narcissism is, even, I mean, everybody kind of knows what it is just based off of like Googling it, or dictionary definition of it. But you truly have to understand or live it to understand how it works. So, we tend to use the word narcissist to describe a person who's self-centered, or they're just short on empathy. They're not empathetic at all, like no emotions. But it's also important to remember that a narcissistic personality disorder, which is NPD, let's just say NPD, because sometimes it's a little tongue twisting to say narcissistic. NPD, narcissistic personality disorder, is defined as a legitimate mental health condition that requires diagnosis by a mental health professional. So that's the dictionary definition. So something also you have to, there's so many loops and so many insides and outs to this. People can exhibit some narcissistic characteristics without even having NPD. So in other words, they can have like the characteristics of it, but not even really have the disorder. That sounds crazy, right? So examples: having an inflated sense of self, needing a constant praise, taking advantage of others, not recognizing or even caring about the needs of others. Let's make things a little bit more complicated now. People with NPD or narcissistic tendencies are often very sensitive to criticism, despite their high self-esteem. So that is very confusing. Like, they can't stand to be criticized, but they still have like this high self-esteem. They don't have low self-esteem. They got high self-esteem. They're the best thing since sliced bread, but they can't stand to be criticized. You know why? Because they think, I guess, in their minds, they're thinking, well, they got this perfect little bubble around them. They're perfect in a sense, so they could do no wrong. And if somebody calls them out that they've done something wrong, then guess what? You have a problem. Like I said, I can only imagine some of you listening to this and saying, oh my gosh, I'm in a relationship right now like that, or my parents were like that. I feel for you. And this is why I count my blessings, because I am so grateful that I am not dealing with that, because I can't imagine having to deal with that day in and day out. And think about people that are like married, and they have this disorder, or they have a spouse that suffers, whether it's the wife or the husband, and then they have kids are involved. So they're trying to parent their kids one way, and the narcissist is trying to parent the kids another way. Narcissists might be even abusive to the kids, and the other partner, the spouse isn't. So discipline will be hard. I'm telling you right now, if you recognize someone that you're dating that suffers from these tendencies, or that they have this disorder, you better run as far and as fast as you can and do not get involved, because it's hard to break a relationship. It's hard to come out of that type of relationship. Once you get in, it's like you're tied up, not literally, but it's hard to break away from that, because if the narcissist has his way or her way, they'll chop you all the way down until you feel like you have low self-esteem. You feel like you're nothing. So where are you going? Who are you going to? If you feel like your worth, you don't value your worth, or you have low self-esteem, you're going to think that nobody else wants you. And that's what they'll make you or lead you to believe. So it'll be hard for you to get out of the relationship. I know some of you are listening. There's one person in particular I'm thinking about, but that's listening right now. And I hope that you get a lot out of this, because I've been wanting to do this podcast for you for a long time. And I know you've learned a lot on your own, and that's great. It's great to educate yourself. But from a professional standpoint, you have to be careful. Be very careful, because you may think that a person that has a mental health disorder won't harm you physically or mentally. It could be either or, and they can. So you keep your guard up and stay aware and awake. So here's a few things. Here's a few tips, I should say. Ways that you can, that might help you maybe deal with someone that has NPD. Maybe this can just kind of buy you some time until you're ready to move on. So the first thing is, see them for who they really are. When they want to, people with narcissistic personalities are pretty good at turning on the charm. So they are really good at that, especially in the beginning when you're dating or you first meet them. Of course, they're not going to show the bad side. Of course, they're not going to show the true side. They're going to show you what they think you want to see. So you might find yourself drawn to this. There'll be promises. There'll be great ideas. This right here is dangerous. It's like the honeymoon phase. I'm not saying all men and women are narcissists, because everybody has that honeymoon phase in the beginning of the relationship. Everybody has that wonderful feeling of love and appreciation in the beginning. But there are red flags that will pop up when that will show you that this person is not who they say that they are. So before you get drawn in, watch how this person that you're involved with treats others when they're not on what you would call the stage. When they're not on stage, they're not in front of the camera. And I'm talking about a fake camera, not like an actual camera. Like they're in the spotlight. When they're in the spotlight, watch how they act. If you catch them lying, manipulating, or disrespecting others, there's no reason to believe that they won't do the same thing to you. Right? So you got to pay attention to that. The first step in dealing with someone who has narcissistic personality is just accepting them for who they are. There's not really much that you can do to change that. You cannot change it. As much as you think that you can, you cannot. Another one is break the spell and stop focusing on them. When there's a narcissistic personality in your orbit, attention seems to gravitate their way. That's just how it happens. Whether it's negative or positive attention, those with narcissistic personalities work hard to keep themselves in the spotlight. All eyes on them, right? And then you might find soon, that you are buying into this tactic. You start putting your own needs aside to keep them happy, keep them satisfied. So if you're waiting for a break in their attention-seeking behavior, it may never come. It can never happen. It might never happen. No matter how much you adjust your life to suit their needs, it's just never going to be enough. It's never going to be enough. So if you have to deal with a narcissistic personality, don't allow them to don't allow them to like cause you to like have a what's the word I'm looking for? Like your sense of self, like you have to remind yourself that you have strengths and desires and goals. So I think that's where my thought process was going, is that don't allow them to change your thought process. Don't allow them to knock down your goals. Don't allow them to block your goals, or not identify your strengths and just show you your weaknesses. So you might, walk into this relationship, or, you might, like I said, it could be parents as well, with a great sense of self. Like, I'm going to do this. This is what I do. This is what I'm going to do. This is my goal in life. These are the things that I'm going to accomplish. But then when you give it somebody that's a narcissist, they kind of take that dream away and they just knock you down, and they make you feel like you have no self-worth, that you're not capable of accomplishing these things, because they kind of belittle you. They can even cause you to be depressed, and you have no motivation to do anything, Another thing is, another tip I can give you is speak up for yourself. There are times when ignoring something or simply walking away is like an appropriate response, but you have to pick your battles, right? You really do, because walking away as a response to something that's said or done by a narcissist, remember, they need to be in the spotlight. What do you think is going to happen? But a lot depends on the relationship too. For example, dealing like with a boss, your parent, or your spouse can call for different strategies than dealing with like a sibling or a child or somebody you work with. It's just like two different things. Your boss, parent, or spouse, it's like they're like up here, and the coworker or your brother or sister or your child is like down here. So, something, it's not funny, but narcissistic people, they like to make you squirm. They really do. They like to put you on that hot seat, and they enjoy it. It's funny to them. They might not be physically laughing, although some of them probably are, but they could be laughing inside. But if that's the case, try not to get like visibly flustered or show that you're annoyed. That's just going to urge them to continue. That's going to make them want to continue doing what they're doing. So watch your body language around somebody that's narcissist. But something also that you should remember is, what if the person that we're talking about is your spouse? What do you do then? It's not like you just get up and leave. What do you think that a person that's married to a narcissist does versus a person that's dating one? When you're dating one, you can just leave, right? So if it's someone that's close in your life, then you owe it to yourself to speak up. You can't keep quiet. You do have to speak up. I know, like I'm saying, don't antagonize them. Don't provoke them. Yeah, that's true. But you also have to set boundaries. And what I think happens is, when you don't set boundaries from day one, I'm talking about day one, then they will take advantage, and they know that they can take advantage. So it's kind of hard to go backwards in time. Just remain calm and pick and choose your battles, and you'll know when to speak up and you'll know when not to speak up. Okay, that moves on to the next thing that I was going to say, was setting boundaries. Is you have to set clear boundaries. A person with a narcissistic personality is often self-absorbed. It's all about them, right? So if you don't set boundaries, guess what happens? You get taken advantage of. A narcissist might feel entitled to go where they want, snoop through your things, or tell you how you should feel. You can't express yourself to them. You can't tell them how you feel because that's not how you're supposed to feel. They also give unsolicited advice and take credit for things that you've done, or pressure you to talk about private things in a public setting. They can get loud and obnoxious. And oh God, don't you try to challenge them in public. Oh, that's a whole nother story right there. A narcissist also has little sense of personal space, so they tend to cross a lot of boundaries. More often than not, they don't even see them. That's why you have to be so clear about boundaries that are important to you from day one. Day one, not day 100, day one. You can still set boundaries throughout your relationship, but setting them from the beginning makes things a lot easier. Narcissists, there's no consequences with them. There's no consequences. Because someone with a narcissistic personality, typically they start to pay attention when things start affecting them personally. That's when they start paying attention, not when it's affecting you. So let me give you an example. Let me see. Let's say you have a coworker who loves to park their big truck in a way that makes it hard for you to back out. Can't back your car out because they park their truck all crazy. An example of you setting boundaries would you start by firmly asking them, or, in a stern but, gentle way, I guess you can say, ask them to make sure that they leave you enough space. Then talk about the consequences for not respecting your wishes. Yeah, this is going to be interesting, right? So, for example, if you can't safely back your car out, you'll have their car towed. I know this sounds harsh, but if you can't park your truck properly and I can't get out, then I'm going to have to just have your truck towed. So the key is to follow through and call the towing company the next time it happens, because guess what? They're going to challenge you. They're going to say, yeah, okay, right. They're going to think that you don't have the gall to do that. So guess what? You call the tow truck. You have their car towed. But be careful with that too. Okay, like I said, every situation is tricky. So this leads to the next tip that I wanted to give you is expect them to push back. If you stand up to someone with a narcissistic personality, you can expect for them to respond to you. Definitely. Once you speak up and set boundaries, they come back at you with demands of their own. So you say, well, you need to do this. Well, no, you need to do this too. It's always a comeback. It's they're not going to just, accept responsibility for, what it is that you're asking them or what boundaries you're setting. They can also try to manipulate you into feeling guilty or believing that you're the one being unreasonable and controlling. And that's their way of making a play for sympathy. So be prepared to stand your ground. But if you take a step backwards and you just kind of, don't stand your ground or, hold up to what you say you're going to do or setting those boundaries, they're not going to take you seriously. They really will not. Another thing is, please remember that it's not your fault. A person that has narcissistic personality disorder, NPD, is not likely to admit a mistake or take responsibility for hurting you at all. They're not. They're just not. Instead, they try to project their own negative behaviors onto you or someone else. You might be tempted to keep the peace by accepting the blame, but you don't have to belittle yourself to salvage your ego. You know what the truth is. Don't let anyone take that away from you. Another one is find a support system. If you can't avoid this person, try to build up like a healthy relationship, a support network of people around you. It could be family, friends, brother, sister, coworkers, someone, anyone. Spending too much time in a dysfunctional relationship with someone who has a narcissistic personality can leave you emotionally drained. Rekindle friendships, try to nurture new ones, hang out with your family. if your circle, like you might have a little small social circle, take a class, develop a hobby. There's things that you can do to keep yourself busy. Another tip is insist on immediate action, not promises. What I mean by that, insist on immediate action, not promises. People with narcissistic personalities are good at making promises. They promise to do what you want and not to do that thing that you hate. They promise to do better. They might even be sincere about their promises, but make no mistake about it. The promises that they make, it is a means to an end for someone with a narcissistic personality. I hope you get what I'm saying there. There's a method to their madness, right? Once they get what they want, the motivation is completely gone, and you can't count on their actions matching their words. Not at all. Ask for what you want, and stand your ground. Insist that you'll only fulfill their requests after they fulfilled yours. So you ask them for something, wait for them to complete the task or to do it before, they have to fulfill that request before they ask you to do something. Because they can, it's easy you can forget and get lost and be like, wait a minute, wasn't he supposed to be doing something for me? Wasn't she supposed to be doing something for me? So, make sure that they hold up their end of the deal. You also have to understand that in narcissist, another tip, this is another tip. We're up to like number 9. Nine. I actually have 10 of them. So we have one more after this. You have to understand that a narcissistic person needs help, professional help. You cannot help them. People with NPD do not see that there's a problem, at least not with themselves. And as a result, it's unlikely that they're going to even get help. But people with NPD, they have other disorders. Usually it'll be like substance abuse, mental health, personality disorders. Having another disorder is what usually makes them go get help. And then the narcissism is discovered when they're getting help for the other problem. That's how it usually works out. So just remember, you can't help them. You can develop coping skills, coping mechanisms, tips, keys, ways to deal with the narcissist. And my suggestion is, unless you're married and you're dating, or it's a friend, or even a parent, you can create space between you and that person. You do not have to stay in a relationship with a person that suffers from NPD if you don't want to. So I'm saying unless you're married, because when you're married, it's a whole nother, I have my beliefs when it comes to marriage. And I believe that, marriage is, especially when you're married for the right reasons, it's for better, for worse, I believe is part. I was just talking to my husband the other day. I said, it's been 13 years, but I'm trying to remember what are the things. It was honor and obey. And I was trying to remember, it's for better or for worse. That's it. So if you're listening to this, honey, if you listen to this podcast, it's for better or for worse. That was the other thing that you say when you're exchanging your vows. Because I was like, we act like we're an old couple. I was like, I can't even remember what it was. So for better, for worse. That's why I'm saying when you're married and you think that person is a narcissist, it's easier said than done. People can say, yeah, I'm married. I can pack up my bags and leave. Yeah, okay. Well, that's you're right. You can do that. I don't encourage anyone to stay in an abusive relationship because, narcissism can turn abusive mentally, physically, emotionally. There can be abuse. And, once there's abuse, I don't recommend you put yourself in harm's way for your mental or for your physical, especially if there's kids involved. So that's, marriage is always tricky when you're facing these issues. But dating, listen, if you're dating somebody that has NPD, pack your bags and go. Unless you're willing to try to work with this person and deal with this person. And the only way that I can see a person staying in a relationship where they're not connected through marriage is if the person that suffers from NPD is willing to get help, or they recognize, which I said is very rare, they recognize that they have a problem. Because if they don't recognize they have a problem, they don't get help, what are you staying around for? What are you thinking is going to happen what I'm thinking you're thinking is that you can fix them, and you can't do that. You can't do that. And the last thing is recognize when you need help. When you regularly deal with someone who has a narcissistic personality, it can take a toll on your mental and your physical health. We just talked about that. It will drain you. So you might start seeing symptoms of anxiety, depression, unexplained physical ailments like pains in your joints, your knees. Oh, my elbow's hurting, or I'm just joking, but you know, different things will start happening to affect your health because you're not healthy. And when that happens, guess what? Things have gone too far. You need to see a doctor. All right. So keep that in mind. How you know when to move on, when you know that you know, enough is enough. I mean, enough is enough when you identify the NPD, but I'm saying when enough is enough. And signs of an abusive relationship is when there's name calling and insults, patronizing, public humiliation, yelling, threatening, jealousy, accusations. When you start seeing those things happen, wake up. Wake up. There are some warning signs. I mean, there are some other warning signs. These are kind of things that we discussed anyway, or that I mentioned to you. When they blame you for everything that goes wrong, they start monitoring your movements, or they try to attempt to isolate you. They tell you how you really should feel, not how, like, you know, I'm upset with you because you left your socks on the floor. They would get mad at something so simple as that. Trust me. Something as simple as leaving socks on the floor will turn into a full-blown argument and a blame game. So those are just some of the warnings and some of the signs and some of the tips that I'm giving you to help you recognize and deal with and, help yourself as far as what do you do, what's the next step to take. But I will leave you with this. When it's generally best to leave your relationship when you're being verbally and emotionally abused. When you feel manipulated and controlled, when you've been physically abused and you feel threatened, if you feel isolated, the person with NPD shows signs of mental illness or substance abuse and they refuse to go get help. And when your mental and physical health have been affected, when those things start happening, please leave, okay? Seek help and please leave. So today, as I said, was a little bit of a school lesson on a particular mental health disorder that, as I've said, I've come across with clients and with, not just with clients, just I have, you think about all the people that you're friends with or that are in your circle, family. I can guarantee that you know somebody that you're like, wait a minute, this person might have narcissistic personality disorder, or they might have the characteristics of it. Not everybody is a narcissist. Keep that in mind. Not everyone is. Some people just are, like I said, jerks. Let's use that word. Some people are just jerks, and it does not mean that that's what they suffer from. But you can do your own research. You can go online and, Google is a great thing. I mean, it can be dangerous, but it also can be helpful. You also, tomorrow, I guess it would be Thursday. I have quite a few posts that I put up about narcissism, trying to educate my followers on my social media. So I have a Facebook page and I also have an Instagram page. So I put up a few posts there. You can follow me, Life Coach Nancy or Life Hacks with Nancy. You can find me on Facebook. You can also, if you want to learn more, you want to talk, or you have questions, my email is lifecoachnancy7@gmail.com. And again, my website is lifehackswithnancy.com. So you can find all that information listed here in my podcast profile. But if not, feel free to reach out to me and we can talk. I can give you advice. We can even do a consult. if you want to receive services from me. And until next time, I will speak to you again. And I'm not too sure what our topic will be, but I'll make it juicy. I'll make it very interesting. All right. So until we meet again, have a good night.